Good morning. Welcome to the Cory Morgan Show, June 14th, going into the best summer ever. Well, time will tell. Weather's been good so far. Things are starting to open up. Hopefully it's going to be getting better. I'm trying to maintain some optimism. We've been nothing but crabby and downcast for a while. We're going to talk about some serious stuff a little later. Marcel Latouche is going to be my guest in about 15 minutes or so. He's running a group now called Lead Calgary. They're getting ready for the municipal elections that are coming this fall, and that's going to be a really hotly contested one. We're getting a new mayor one way or another. We're going to get a number of new councillors, and we've got some real ingrained sickness in our municipal politics and our municipal system. So Marcel's worked on municipal politics, and commented on it for quite some time. He's written a number of books on it. It's always a good chat to get him on. So we'll get on to our sponsors while I'm at it. So yeah, just a reminder, we do it every show, but it's important. We don't take any tax funding at the Western Standard. We're not beholden to government. I mean, you can't speak freely about the government. You can't be critical of the government if you're dependent on them for your money, or at least you're willing to sacrifice your income for it. We don't do that. They're not offering us any money, and while we aren't taking it, we rely on you guys who've been subscribing, who we really appreciate, and on our sponsors, of course, as well, one of whom is the Resistance Coffee Company. These guys are fun. They've, as you can see from their crossed rifles, on their logo, they're not trying to be politically correct. In fact, they're for people who are tired of political correctness being rammed down your throat. Like, don't you hate that when you buy a product from someplace, and then you find out they've been donating to like Greenpeace and stuff to actually, so they're taking your money as a customer and then taking a portion of it and giving it to groups who want to put you out of work. Well, the Resistance Coffee Company's here for you. You can get some fantastic coffee from these guys, fresh roasted, and your money's not going to any of those rotten causes. In fact, 10% of it's going to things like the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, where they've been standing up for people who've been standing up against the lockdowns and other causes such as that. Plus 10% off you'll get on your first purchase if you enter the promo code Western Standard. So get on over to resistancecoffee.com. Check it out. They got these great flavors, like I said, liberal tears and empty promises, things such as that, defund the CBC. And you can pick those fun coffee brands, order some, it's a Canadian business, get some stuff home. Make sure to use that promo code Western Standard, and you'll get 10% off, and you'll get it at the resistancecoffee.com. And our other sponsor, again, somebody's standing up for our rights, and it's the CCFR. That's the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. And nobody works as hard to fight for your ability to own and use firearms. Check out what the CCFR is doing by going to firearmsrights.ca, and you click on Why Join Us. These guys are out, they're lobbying, we know, from orders in council, things such as that. The Liberals are doing every backdoor way to try and take away your property, take away your right and your ability to go out and enjoy your property, transfer property. And yes, that property happens to be firearms. So these guys are standing up for you. Make sure to get over there, help them stand up for you. Firearmsrights.ca, and click Why Join Us. Those guys are doing us all a favor. Let's do one back for them. So Jake Hickson, isn't Lead Calgary one of those leftist packs, or am I mixing it up with one of the other groups? Yes, Jake, I believe you are mixing it up with one of the other groups. Actually, there's so many sprouting up right now, and that's part of what I want to talk to Marcel about, is that I think there's Lead Now. There's a leftist group with those guys, and there are so many all over the place. When we throttle election financing ability, I mean, it's like using a strainer to hold water, right? It's just going to leak out all sorts of other ways, and that's what's happened. We've got a whole pile of union PACs all over the place. I mean, the unions just seem to have a bottomless pit of money to try and influence elections. It's funny, people speak of the evil, corporate influence upon elections, but I tell you, unions, I mean, look at the ads you're listening to day in, day out if you're listening to mainstream media, which you really should cut out. We got better things than that. But all the same, they're also spawning these PACs all over the place. I mean, some of them are just something else. But this one with Marcel is most certainly not a union-funded left-wing PAC, though I believe it is a PAC, and it's looking for conservative things. So Marcel will expand in more detail on that for sure. So yeah, Albertan, is the Liberals' tears blend bitter? It might be. I don't know. It's bitter tears to them, but it's sweet tears to us, when they're crying those liberal tears because somebody's triggered them because they said something that sparked them off. I find it sweet to see those tears running down those thin-skinned faces. And yes, Heather's confirming there, Lead Calgary is not leftist. That's right. So, but again, it's not, I don't blame people for getting mixed up. There's just so many PACs out there. It's hard to keep up on them. I'm going to get on a self-serving thing quickly. It is my wife, Jane Morgan's birthday today. She survived another year living with my crazy ass. She puts up with so much. I want to wish her a happy birthday. She was actually sleeping in this morning. I didn't want to wake her up and bother her because she didn't sleep well last night because her husband's too cheap to get air conditioning at home. But she's a fantastic, beautiful woman, and I benefit from her poor taste in men every day. I don't know if she's tuning in. She listens to enough of my ranting at the best of times. But if you're watching, Jane, I love you. Happy birthday. And I'll be home to irritate you in a couple of hours. So I'll get those wishes out to you. And I said, now back to the subject at hand. And Claudette says, happy birthday, Jane, as well. Let's get on to some news, a little more crabby things here. C10, that's the big one on the federal front going on. This is that free speech gagging order. This is sliding under the radar. We're so distracted this year. These years when we have a crisis from the pandemic, things like this, we get the government can manage to get a whole lot of things accomplished that infringe on our rights because we're too busy trying to defend our rights from 100 different fronts. So it's a challenging thing. C10, it sounds so innocuous and boring. It started as just kind of a bit of a internet control bill. It comes from that Gabal, but we kept seeing it leaking out of them, how much more control and how much they want to control our speech with it, how much they want to control our press with it. And it's gotten to the point of frantic now. The Conservatives are the only party really standing up and trying to fight this. They've been filibustering, and I've not been, terribly friendly with O'Toole, but he's still the best of the bunch as far as that goes. They've been trying to hold this bill up, and now the Liberals have shut down all debate. They're trying to mash this through committee before the summer break hits. I think a lot of it, too, their desperation, and it's showing. We're probably going into a federal election this fall. If they don't get this gag bill through now, they won't be able to gag us when the election comes this fall. So they're just getting frantic, and it's a battle worth watching. Not enough people are keeping a close eye on it. It looks like the clock might be running out on them. Because the next step, once they force this through Parliament, is it has to go to the Senate. And the Senate, they don't do anything quickly. I mean, again, though, with the majority government, we know they would have rammed this through on us already. With a minority, there's some ability to slow these things down. But speak to your MPs, send emails out. This one is really a frightening bill. I mean, they could shut down shows like this. They could shut down the Standard. They could shut down the Rebel, Post Millennial, all these other alternative media outlets, because that's what they're out to do. They want to control information, and we can't let them do that. I mean, yes, it's a messy world out there in the internet. There's no doubt about it. There are, some inaccurate news stories get out there. There's some hyperbolic stuff. There's some terribly slanted media. But it's up to us as citizens to sift through that. We have to do it ourselves. Don't let the government clean out the information on your behalf, because they won't do it on your behalf. They'll do it on their own. And you won't see any information that doesn't serve the interest of the party in power. Free speech, it's such a critical, essential one. Free expression, free press. And these guys are trying their hardest to take that away. So, I mean, and there's so many reasons to vote for change this fall or whatever, and I don't know. It's an exercise in futility. I don't think we'll get these freedoms until the West finally becomes independent. But we've got to at least go down fighting, keep pushing back. They're coming after your firearms. As I said earlier, we got the group pushing back on this. But this C10, this is an ugly, odious bill. I mean, he wants to even go after somebody who has a little YouTube channel if they do fitness videos. You might suddenly have to get a government license to do it. And there's not a problem. This is a solution looking for a problem. The problem is that the federal government is hearing from people they don't want to. Citizens are speaking and communicating with each other in ways that the federal government can't control, and they don't want that. And so they've modeled this bill to try and take care of it. And it's really distressing, Again, they're taking advantage of us in a time of crisis and trying to shove this thing through when people aren't watching. And we really got to stand up on this one. Speaking of the imbeciles in government, Seamus O'Regan, that guy, he's special. And he's the one in charge of our energy these days. A statement out of him, it's on the Western Standard Online, one of the stories up there, saying he doesn't know if we need any more pipelines in Canada. He's not sure. Well, don't be then. But it's not and shouldn't be the bloody role of the government to decide that. Get the hell out of the way, and private investors will decide if we need more pipelines or not. This ridiculousness, this insanity of throttling our energy sector, of shutting down our ability to export products to a world that's hungry for them, and they are. Quit listening to the leftist BS. Why would you ever listen to a socialist when they preach about economics? When they give these guys, they failed everywhere they've gone, okay? Their leadership led to Venezuela. Their leadership led to the Soviet Union. Their leadership led to Cuba. And now they're saying, oh, we don't need oil and gas anymore. The economy, the green economy, will fix it. It'll be better. They're wrong. And they're idiots. Don't listen to them. We can't put our policies based on the madness from these guys with an imaginary secondary economy up there with these green energy sources. They're not there. The Trans Mountain, everything's done. It's not a matter whether we need pipelines. We just can't get them. We're looking at Line 5. That's in battle right now. If we'd had Energy East, it wouldn't have been an issue, really. But now we're kind of castrated, aren't we? And again, Energy East, they weren't looking for tax dollars. They weren't looking for money. They just needed government to get out of the way. And getting government more deeply involved doesn't help. We saw that. Jason Kenney put $1.3 billion of our tax dollars into the Keystone line. That got canceled, and now we're on the hook for that. The solution is just get government out of the way. We'll take care of it. We'll be all right. Quit holding it up. Look how brutal it is with the Trans Mountain. They're shut down again because somebody went and mowed some grass somewhere on the right-of-way that they weren't supposed to. It was shut down for a few months last winter because of a fatality. But, how long do you do a safety stand down? I tell you what, we're coming into some really tough economic times. We're sitting on some of the best resources with world demand rising for it all over the place. Oil's back up to $70 a barrel. We need to recover with all this debt we've taken on, all this spending, all these unemployed people. We're sitting on this pile of golden eggs, and we're busy putting a brick wall around the nest. And it's stupid. And we're all going to pay for it. We got to push back. This is ridiculous. How much debt do you want to take on? We can't borrow forever. We're going to see some inflation coming. But meanwhile, the man in charge of our energy sector is up there musing, saying, I don't know if we need any more pipelines. Shut up, Seamus. You don't know what you're talking about. You're an East Coast guy. You know nothing about the energy sector. You're grossly unqualified for the role you're in. Just put in your days 9 to 5, head to the bar, talk about how important you are, and let us get to work. We'll take care of it. Don't try to speculate on whether or not we need pipes. You're wrong. And yeah, think about that. He looks up to Trudeau as a mentor. That's a frightening thought. Mr. Blackface, who's over there unmasked, hugging and kissing and doing whatnot in the G7 summit over in Europe, whilst the rest of us remain following pandemic restrictions. Either way, that's my rant for the morning. Like I said, I had some good news. Jane's still hanging in there with me, and she's gotten another year older. Bad news, the Liberals are still in power in Ottawa, and we still have our battles. So I've got Marcel Latouche joining me, though, and we can perhaps get some good productive talk on how we can improve our status and things going forward, how we can use our democratic exercises to get better government, hopefully, and, all is never all lost. It's just we can get ourselves into a bad hole before we dig ourselves out. So let's bring Marcel in here. Hey, Marcel, how you doing?
Good morning, Cory. How are you?
Oh, very good. Thanks, actually. I love the hot weather and the heat. It's hard on some people, but I just thrive on it. So that puts me in a better mood. And
I'm just hoping to get some sunshine and be able to go outside without a mask.
Yes, yeah, the masks are a little unpleasant in 30-degree weather. That's for sure. So yeah, I appreciate you, coming on. There's a lot lining up as we get into July and August. It's going to be hard to pay attention to politics. Hopefully, we're getting a good summer. We're all going to get out and all that stuff we've been holding back on and all that. We got to pay attention though, because we've got a big municipal election approaching us this fall in the entire province. And as I said in my intro, we've got a real sick municipal political situation is the term I used for it all over the place. I wanted to clarify though. So you're with Lead Calgary now. Is that right, Marcel?
Yes, for the municipal election, I am going to be working with Lead Calgary, which is a political action committee that some people have put together, and so that we can monitor, interview some of the candidates, make sure that we get some good ideas out there, get the information required to the electorate so that they can make the best decision. Because in our view, we believe that 2021 municipal election across the board in the two big cities and some other jurisdiction are going to be a watershed. We need to look at things in a totally different way from the past 10 years. And with Iverson leaving and Nancy leaving, we've got to be very, very careful how we elect and select people to be elected in October of 2021. And I want to talk to you about a certain number of things, and it is very troubling, and that's what we're going to talk about today.
Great. Yeah, there's unfortunately always a lot of problems to lay out and things that need to be addressed. I guess one of them, and you'd mentioned it earlier with your email, we've had issues in Edmonton and in Calgary with councillors who don't toe the line and the others sort of circle the wagons and try to censor them. We're seeing that with Mike Nickel in Edmonton. We're seeing that in Calgary with Farkas. What have we got going on down there?
Well, there is a major problem here, and we've got to be very careful about this. This goes down to the fundamentals of democracy. In Alberta, we continue to say there is no party politics at the municipal level. But what we have now is a wave of censorship between councillors who do not like people who do not stand with their policies of big spending and taxation. Let's first start with Calgary. For the past 4 years, we've had Farkas, who opposes a lot of things because he's a principal councillor who believes in less spending, less taxes, who's been marginalized by most of council. And what happens is he's been sanctioned, he's been censored, and together with Sean Chu, another councillor, they've been maligned for the past 4 years. And this is not only Calgary. You've got Mike Nickel, who's now going on and on with all sorts of sanctions by the remainder of the Edmonton Council. What happens is, if these people do not like what other people say, in democracy, they've got a right to stand on their principles. And the other majority of people on these councils are beginning to ostracize these people. And it's not just the two big council. Let's look at Inishvale, for instance. Carrot has been ostracized, and he has to step down, and he's running for mayor of Inishvale. And last week, we got a report from the Rocky View now. They are attacking Samantha Wright, a councillor, telling her that she's not been paying her taxes and so on and so forth, so much so that a judge has said that this is harassment. I mean, what is going on here? Do we have democracy in our local government, or don't we? Because some people are getting away with it. If they form part of the cabal, they get away with it. If you are not with the cabal, you get ostracized, and your constituents do not get respected because you don't respect the elected representative. This is becoming a very, very big issue, and Albertans, especially in both cities, have got to recognize this and start asking the questions. Do we ask people to be elected to represent us or to represent a cabal?
Yeah, well, the only thing worse than a party system is an unofficial party system, in my point of view. I mean, they've got their little groups where they stick together and they organize and they move as a block, which is essentially a party system, but it doesn't even have the checks and balances that a party system would have. So it's actually kind of an uglier hybrid.
Absolutely. And what is happening is some of members of the cabal are having breach of the code of conduct. They are having breach of electoral bylaws, and they are not being sanctioned at all because they are part of the cabal. And this is very, very disturbing. I mean, what has happened lately is that, for instance, Councillor Sutherland can support anybody he wants. But what he did last week was to send a letter out of his office to ask his constituents to support another councillor, Jeff Davison, as mayor in October. But what is very interesting about this is a breach of the code of conduct, and nobody has said anything. Where is the ethics commissioner? Where is the outrage about somebody using his office to support another councillor? And this is very important because I'm going to talk to you about what is this collusion about down the road. Councillor Gondek, who is running for mayor, has signs all over the place in Calgary on public areas, and nobody has done anything about it. Nobody is complained about it. The electoral officer has not done anything about it. And this is what worries me. I don't care if somebody supports somebody, as long as they support them within the rules as put forward in the electoral system. And if we are going to have a cabal supporting a group of people and by the same token ostracizing other people, we've got a problem. This is not a banana republic.
Yeah, well, and I'm glad you brought it up because I've noticed that driving around the city, and I've run in a number of elections, and typically you're not allowed to put any signs on public property until the writ period begins, which is still months away. Yet I am seeing Jody Gondek signs and ditches, and actually on Blackfoot Trail, for example, where I know from past elections, you're not allowed to put election signs on that at any time. Yet, where is it? But you know what I almost fear, because we've got some really ugly politics going on, and I know, the manager of Gondek's campaign won't stop anywhere, is they're waiting for somebody to go out and vandalize or tear down one of those signs or do something nasty, and then they'll claim that it was racism, of course, because that's always their favorite plot to go towards, even though it might be just some drunken clown going after a sign he didn't like on the side of the road. But I think there's quite a strategic basis to what they're up to right now.
Oh, exactly. I remember clearly 10 years ago with the McIver campaign, when apparently a brick was thrown into the Nancy campaign, and it was claimed to be racism from McIver. And having been with McIver for years, I knew it was nothing to do with him. And this is exactly what you said. We may be able to see this kind of things coming up very soon. The problem is Heather McRae is the wife of Gondek's manager, who is Stephen Carter. The problem is, are we going to have collusion if Gondek becomes mayor and then Heather McRae is elected? We've got to make this quite clear to the electorate. What is your position? Which brings me to something else, which is even more important. My sources say to me that if there is a federal election, Councillor Shahal may be running for the Federal Liberal Party. Now, let's look at this. Then there is the issue of Sutherland thinking that by supporting Jeff Davison, he might run as a candidate and then step down to be Davison chief of staff if he is elected for mayor. Let's talk about this very clearly here. So if Shahal runs for council, he wins his position in council without telling people that he has an intention to run as a liberal candidate at the federal level. The federal election is called, and he steps down, and he runs for the federal election, and then we have to have another by-election. Same thing with Sutherland. If Jeff Davison wins as mayor, does Sutherland step down as councillor if he wins and run for chief of staff with him? There is a need for clarification to the electorate. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I expect to do. And if I do this, we are not going to expose the electorate to a by-election maybe a month after the municipal election. We need transparency. We need these candidates to announce what their intention is clearly before the election. So I challenge both Sutherland to tell us what his intent is, and Shahal to tell us whether he's running as a Liberal candidate in the federal election.
Yeah, I'm just going to step back one moment because there was a good question out of Claudette. She was asking, this was getting back to the signs though, and some others are speaking up, what has to be done to get that addressed? Claudette, there's two things you can do. Call 311 and get the complaints in because it's breaking city bylaws and they should come out and remove it. And at least it's on the record that there has been a complaint. And I suggest that to everybody else as well. And you can also call the electoral officer or email them with, I'm not sure where it is. It's at the City of Calgary site, perhaps. I'm used to Elections Alberta. But those signs have to be addressed. And it kind of indicates, again, I mean, we've got the person who's breaking those rules is somebody who was very tightly tied to the Nenshi campaign. I mean, it's all that same group. As you're saying, it's a cabal. And they know that they're not going to get cracked down on because they got connections with the existing mayor. And it's, again, abusing how entrenched they are. So either way, getting back to where you were, Marcel, yeah, there's a lot of them with some strange competing interests going on. I remember with Diane Colley-Urquhart, she ran to be MLA in a by-election, but she didn't leave it open for a by-election for municipal council because she lost the provincial campaign, so she just went right back to her seat. You know, she hedged her bets there.
That's right. I mean, hedging your bets is an insult to the electorate because what you're doing is you're looking for your own self-preservation as well as looking for a new job at a higher level. We've got to stop this sort of double dipping that goes on here. Not only are they lying to their constituents, vote for me, and we are going to be representing you. But next week, if there's a federal election, I'm going to seek a seat on the federal government because I have been promised a position as minister to represent Calgary. I mean, this is absurd. We cannot have this anymore. And the electorate is going to be fooled once again.
Yeah, well, so is that part of what Lead Calgary is going to be doing? Is putting the question to them? I mean, try to get a commitment, saying, "Hey, if you're running for a 4-year term, we expect you to put in the job for 4 years when you're asking for my vote today." Things such as that.
Exactly, and this is what we are going to do. I mean, my work with the Institute for Public Sector Accountability has always been about transparency and accountability. And that's what we are going to continue at Lead Calgary. If people want to know what we are about, they can go to leadcalgary.ca or follow us on Facebook at Lead Calgary. I mean, the fact that we are not going to be sort of attacking people. We want to educate the electorate so that they get the best information to make the best decision when they vote. I mean, we are not going to start having a slate of candidates or whatever. I mean, what we are going to do is we are going to evaluate. We've started interviewing candidates. We know that it's a little bit set up by a number of wards here already. We're going to talk to people. We're going to find out what they stand for. We are going to start asking them the tough question so that we know if we are going to make them accountable once they're elected. The electorate deserves to know what people stand for, what they are going to do for them. Do they say, "Oh, I am going to run as a conservative, and then once elected, I operate as a liberal"? Nobody says they are liberals or conservative when they run at the municipal level, but the ideology exists. I was fooled last time. I supported a number of candidates in Calgary, including Davison, Gondek, Shahal, and I've been fooled because these people never ever operated as conservative. They say they are conservative, but anybody who supports tax increases for 4 years and huge expenditures on all sorts of political legacies cannot be a conservative or a principled conservative. And that's what we are going to do at Lead Calgary. We are going to examine the situation. We are going to look at the economic basis of Calgary and advise people on what kind of candidates you require to bring us back to where we are.
Well, and I appreciate that. One of our problems, as Jake pointed out, one of the commenters too, saying at the municipal level, people vote for the most recognizable name. And unfortunately, there really is a very strong incumbent advantage when it comes to municipal politics. Again, some of it comes down to our apathy. We don't get out there and look. I mean, that's the government that's closest to us. It impacts us so much, yet we're terrible for getting off our butts and checking out who's running and casting our ballot. And this time around, it's such a huge opportunity for potential change. We really need to get people informed and get them out to vote this time, because it might be 10 more years before you get another chance to knock off a mayor.
Absolutely. But there is one more fundamental thing that we've got to look at now. And we've submitted a letter already to the Municipal Affairs Ministry, because we have a real problem here. Because of the behavior, and I don't know anything about Mr. Johnston, to tell you the truth. There are legal cases going around. I don't know the person, I've never spoken to him. I just read what is in the newspaper, that he's been charged or whatever. So I'm not going to go there. But the issue that I want to talk about is the fact that there will be no electoral list this year, because they don't want to give him the electoral list. What that does is it prevents other candidates for getting an electoral list, which is unfair, because incumbents already have maybe not a full list, but at least a list that they've used in previous elections. So they have an unfair advantage. And this is wrong. We've got to look at this very seriously and talk about whether we should have a list of electors given to candidates or preclude somebody from it. It's very, very dangerous, because incumbents will have an unfair advantage.
Yeah, that's a sticky and difficult issue, because I mean, it's led people to ask that question. Well, why do they need those lists any longer? They can pound the pavement and find out who lives where. I wrote an article on it, though it's a little dry and boring, but at the end, when it comes to scrutineering and things such as that, there's an important reason for those, because spreading that list to others at some point actually helps prevent electoral fraud. It makes it much more difficult. But at the same time, we are seeing a valid issue that perhaps there's some people who are going to get a hold of personal information who we really don't want getting a hold of it. But how do you ease out of it without giving that incumbent advantage? It's a tough one, this one.
Exactly, it is a tough one. And since I am not a lawyer, I'm not going to dwell into this, but I just want to let people know that there is a possibility of unfair advantage. I mean, I don't know the legal processes or whatever, what to do about this, because I'm not a lawyer. These are the sort of things. The other thing that we've got to talk about is the possible return in Calgary of people who have been councillors, retired, and coming back again. My point is very simple. You're gone, you didn't do very much for Calgary, and you're trying to come back. What are you coming back for? To bring back the old policies that failed? And or is it for you to come back and double dip again in the big pension funds? I mean, if you were unsuccessful last time, you're going to be unsuccessful this time to make us better. And if you brought the policies of higher taxes and huge spending, you're going to do the same thing again this time, because the cabal, if you're part of it, is going to continue the old political legacy thing. I mean, and let's spend and get it done. The big spending that is going to happen now is this projection of revitalizing the downtown. This is a huge boondoggle, There are going to be millions of dollars being spent in revitalizing the downtown core of Calgary. There are major problems with this. People have got to seriously think about this. The oil industry is being decimated, and with COVID, we've seen that the whole of downtown is completely empty, the offices. My sources in the development and construction industry have told me that they believe that there are perhaps only 4 buildings that can be converted to residential because of the construction constraints and so on and so forth. We are going to spend millions of dollars from now and over 10 years to revitalize downtown. It's not going to happen. More and more reports are saying that with COVID-19, people are saying, hey, I'd like to work from home, maybe 3 days a week, and I don't need to go downtown to the office. The other thing is that most younger families don't want to live downtown because over the past years, we've seen the lack of security, the drug dealing downtown after hours, and we can't keep people safe downtown. And why are we putting so much money in those buildings and refurbishing private owners with taxpayers' money to revitalize downtown? What it is about is to revitalize it, to get taxpayers to pay for it so that we get more tax revenue from those buildings. People want to live in suburbs where there are green spaces. They don't want to live downtown. We messed up a long time ago. In 1997, when I wrote, 2004, when I wrote Take Back City Hall, I told people we should never have put so many buildings in the downtown core because technology is going to change things. Now, 17 years later, it has happened. And what we should have done is have different places for buildings and corporations in different places in Calgary, closer to where people live, as opposed to just concentrate on the downtown, which at 5 o'clock is closed down and the riffraff comes in at night and we get crime increase downtown. This idea of revitalization is going to cost us money and it's not going to work because of the new technology. Look at you and I. We don't have to meet now. We can talk. I can talk to the world with you by staying in my office and you in your office. We don't need these big buildings anymore.
Yeah, well, and if we're going to do anything about downtown, I mean, it's ridiculous the way they're going about it. They've got a whole pile of vacant apartments. I mean, if they were full, you could say, well, we need more so people will move down there. But people don't want to live down there. That's what they've got to address. You're just going to build more empty spaces. As you said, it's not just at night, actually. When I go down to the Standard office once a week downtown, it's daytime. The addicts are out of control down there. You do not feel safe in Calgary's downtown these days. If they want step one, you don't need more accommodation. You need to make people feel safe walking up and down the streets because nobody's going to move down there, no matter how pretty a condo you build, when you got to walk through a wall of addicts passed out and spitting on the streets wherever you go. But as you said, there's a heck of a boondoggle coming where they can spend a lot of millions changing buildings that nobody's going to move into later anyhow.
But what is going to happen is that the one of the things that the Institute for Public Sector Accountability has put forward to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs is a change and a look at the assessment of property taxes. We have to look at this very seriously because what's happening in the revenue now, the revenue is coming down because these buildings are empty. And what is going to happen to property taxes? The condo market, the condominium market is going to collapse with this so-called revitalization. We are going to have major problems here if we don't look at how we are going to revitalize Calgary, not just the downtown core. We've got to look at the expenditures. We've got to look at how we are going to have a new Calgary in this new environment. And we are going to have to live within our means. And if we get people who have been spending and spending over the past 10 years re-elected again, we are going to have a major problem. Because now we don't have revenues, we don't have a source for taxes, but we continue to spend. Who do you think are going to pay for it? The taxpayer. And the taxpayer is not going to be non-residential or business taxpayer, because the small businesses are collapsing anyway because they've been decimated by COVID-19. Who is going to pay for it? The residents. The residents are the ones who vote. So they should be very careful who they vote for on October 18.
So, in finding out who they're voting for and looking for information, one of the things that used to be out there for a while was the council tracker from the Manning Institute when that was active. Because it's one of those things lacking in City Hall. You don't have a good Hansard, you don't have a good Gazette system like you do in other levels of government, and municipally in the smaller areas too. I mean, I keep neglecting to bring up, as you said, in Rocky View, we're seeing judges having to intervene because of these guys fighting with each other, and in Innisfail, that the battles are going on. So this is important to us everywhere. But where can we find records of where these councillors are voting so we do know who the high spenders are? Because they can lie to us. They can say, I'm a fiscal conservative, and unless you dig in deep and find out what they've actually voted for, people believe it.
Well, there are other organizations who do this kind of thing. I mean, the Alberta Institute has been doing this for the whole of Alberta. They issue listing and of councillors' votes and so on and so forth. People have got to follow these people like Save Calgary, the Alberta Institute, and places like this. I mean, these are the people who give them this kind of common sense. Calgary is one of them, for sure, giving them the information. I mean, the sort of non-profit organization like IPSA.org, Common Sense Calgary, Save Calgary. These are the organizations who are trying to hold these councillors' feet to fire. That's where you can find this information. It's important for people to go and look for this because it's there. It is not that the information is not there. We have to search for it. We are going to make it available to people closer to the election. We want to make people understand this time what is at stake.
No, it's appreciated. I wonder what we're going to go into this fall. It's kind of interesting to see any actual debates or things such as that. I remember a civic camp years ago, back when that little fake group was running around. They managed the debates one year and kind of stacked them up. I mean, again, for getting voters informed, I hope we have some sort of system where people can see their candidates and make a good choice when comparing between them.
Well, what people have got to be very careful about now is the involvement of unions. The unions have got $2 million available to tell you that we must not privatize services. The problem that people have got to find out is services can be delivered in a totally different way. If we can put a man in space by a private company, I can guarantee you that your garbage can be collected by a private company. You don't need unions to collect your garbage. What we need is a complete rethink of how services are delivered. Not all services have got to be delivered by the government, because 50%, more than 50% of the operating budget of local government is in wages and benefits. And the unions are going to tell you that they are essential for them to do it. I don't want people to lose their jobs. I want people to get their jobs by delivering the services in a more efficient way. And the unions are going to use $2 million of their dues or whatever they collected to influence this election. And the electorate has got to be very careful, because they could be very sorry for what they wish for after October 18 if you continue to vote for people who think that City Hall should be the only delivery of services. You can deliver services, and you must deliver services with new technology and with the private sector involved in it, because the private sector creates jobs. Small businesses creates jobs, not City Hall.
Yeah, well, and it's funny with unions, just for that reminder for some people. I mean, if we're looking to get into change and efficiency and modernization, traditionally, whether people want to admit it or not, unions hold that back quite terribly. I saw that recently with Canada Post. We'd actually had a little outlet for a little while where we were servicing an area with a side business. And boy, the restrictions it would throw on you that had you were not allowed to use certain new technologies to like scan and track packages, because it would put the union outlets at a disadvantage. It was ridiculous. I mean, so that they're actually lobbying to keep in the dark ages. I mean, if the unions had their ways, we'd still have milkmen running up and down the roads which is practical, but not really cost efficient or realistic. But the unions have been spending a lot of money advertising already.
Absolutely. And this is what's going to happen. So, we urge people, come closer to the end of August. We are doing our research. We're doing our work now. And we are working with people, we're interviewing people. And about September, we are going to really get into it. People are going to have holidays. Having been cooped up for 18 months at home, they are going to enjoy the summer. And we don't want to bother them with election purposes right now. Watch us at the end of August, after the holidays. In September, we are going to let them know. By then, we would have interviewed a number of candidates. We can have our opinion and tell them who we think should be elected, why they should be elected, and the others, when we evaluate them, why they should not be elected. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's good. We really need that. And as you said, it's going to be an unusual summer. We've all been waiting a long time. It's going to be hard to catch people's attention. I'm certain candidates will be working throughout the summer however they can. But people are going to be camping and stampeding and doing whatever they can. I guess we wish the best. Claudette is asking, is there a version of what you're doing or a version of you even in Edmonton to speak to Edmonton voters there? We do have a number of listeners up that way as well.
No, I don't actually. I have been so busy with Calgary that the only person I know about is Mike Nicol and his tribulations down there. But no, years ago I did, but this time I am concentrating mostly on Calgary. But they have the same problem. And if Claudette would take it, she can speak to me, and and I can advise her if she wants to take that role. She should step in and do it.
Yeah, well, it's difficult. Edmonton's a tougher city than Calgary, I think, when it comes to, particularly organized labor and some entrenched attitudes just due to being kind of a government town. But as you said, both cities are turning over mayors this time. This is really important, for the whole province. If we can get some good, solid change this time around, because we're in for some critical years pretty soon.
We have to make a change. We cannot continue on the same path that we've been going on for the past 10 years. These people ran as supposedly centrist. But both these mayors were liberals, because Iverson is going to run as a liberal in the federal election anyway. Who knows what Nancy wants to do? And he's been cozy up with Trudeau for years, and his true colors are there. He's a liberal. He's never been a conservative, and all his during his mayoral term is but nothing but spend and tax. This has been debated for the past 4 years by myself and other people. It's been a tax and spend. 2 mayors in Alberta of big cities, and we don't want to get this going on, because there are different ways to do this. And if people want to know where to get information, they can always go to theipsa.org, and we have papers published in there on how things should be done.
Yeah, well, that's a good buzzword to watch for when you see people campaigning, particularly in Alberta, when they say center. What I see with center is somebody who is obfuscating, like you're just actually hiding from where you want to be. Take a stand one spot or another. We saw that with the Alberta Party, and voters saw through it. They keep saying, we're center, we're center, we're center. And people realize, well, you don't stand for anything, so I'm not voting for you. But unfortunately, that's much more effective when you're a municipal candidate, when you say that and you try to stand for nothing, because then you get away with quite a bit once you get in.
What is important to know is that people talk about conservative, and if you're conservative, you're the far right. But that's not true. A true conservative who believes in small government, less taxes, is not far right. It's right of center. And when people say they are of the center in Alberta, they are liberals who are obfuscating and disguising themselves as liberals. They are not in the center, because once they get elected, they move to the far left. And this is what we are waiting for.
And we've got to start firing these guys when they do that. And Claudette's pointing out a good one with the Edmonton race. One thing I have been watching a bit too. So he is running in that. And he was, for people who don't know, a Liberal member of Parliament. He was actually a minister when they brought in the No More Pipelines bill. And he threw Alberta under the bus. And Edmonton voters fired him. But now he's running for mayor up in Edmonton. So as I said, he's hoping to get another turn at the gravy train. Better stand up and make sure so he does not get that mayoral seat.
And this is what I've been talking about these old candidates who've been there before coming back to double dip again. I mean, so he was a liberal minister, and he was a disaster in the Trudeau era, and he's going to come back to Edmonton. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, in Edmonton, wake up. I mean, he is a liberal. He's going to vote as a liberal. He's going to operate as a liberal. And there is absolutely no way that is going to do any good for you except spend and tax. Yeah, that's their basis.
And that's what's important with these conversations, to bring it up, because it's not coming into the general sphere and public discussion. So hopefully something organizes in Edmonton, similarly to what Lead Calgary is putting together, just to at least help people make an informed decision when it comes this fall. So getting towards wrapping up here, what else would you like to touch upon today, Marcel?
Well, I mean, the COVID-19, I mean, I think people have got to think about this very carefully. Look, I am 76 years old. I've had many vaccines over my lifetime, and I am not an anti-vaxxer. If the vaccine is supposed to help, please do it. But I am not going to tell people to wear masks or whatever it is, because I'm in the camp saying that if you've had COVID-19, you are immunized naturally. If you have been vaccinated, you're immunized. So go and enjoy yourself for the summer. For goodness sakes, let the sun shine, have a good time, and then we'll talk about politics in September, so that we can get a better time by electing good people at council in all the local authorities' jurisdiction.
Excellent. Yes, we're all looking forward to a good summer after kind of losing one earlier. And where, again, just one more time, where can people find more information on what you're doing and keeping up with candidates and such?
You can go on leadcalgary.ca, and you can go and follow us on Lead Calgary on Facebook page. And if Claudette wants to get in touch with me, please do so at ipsa.info@shaw.ca.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Marcel. It's always a good time talking to you. Appreciate the work you do. And I'm sure we'll talk again as the campaign starts to really ramp up this fall.
Look forward to it. Have a great summer, Cory. Always nice talking to you and your audience.
Great. Thanks, Marcel. Cut him mid-word there, but he was saying goodbye. But yeah, as I said, it is always good getting Marcel on. He's been a voice for municipal common sense for a long time in the Calgary area. And just, again, the issues are the same everywhere you go, whether it's Calgary, Edmonton, or as I said, Innisfail, Rocky View County, Lethbridge. Boy, they've had some hornet's nest politics going on down there in municipal politics since, as far as living memory goes for me. So we, as I was kind of saying with my opening ramble, we've just got such challenging times, distracting times, tough times, and it can lead people to not paying full attention to these issues as they go. As Marcel was saying, people are going to be enjoying the summer. They want to get out. They want to live a little. Hopefully the bloody masks come off. Here's another reminder. Just remember that with Nenshi. He set the mask mandate all the way until the end of 2021. So even if, assuming, and again, I don't want to get in the debate. I don't think Marcel either, effectiveness of vaccines or whatever. But let's assume that everything's reopened. Provincially, it's reopened. The infections are down. We're in full force this summer. You're still going to be gagging under a mask all the way till Christmas, because Nenshi and the majority of members of the current city council made the law all the way to the end of this year. That's the kind of imbeciles we've got in City Hall. That's the kind of control freaks we have in City Hall. They want these laws. They keep their thumb on you. They put them in for such a ridiculously long time on a fluid situation, and they should be fired for it. We're going to do it this fall. So Marcel is providing, information on that, so we know who to fire. I think a lot of us already do. The other thing, of course, is remember to get up, go out, and actually cast your ballot. It's important. In municipal politics, it's one of the worst for us being apathetic and not getting out and voting on it. And you can't forget, they are a huge part of your life, whether you like it or not. They tax you a whole lot. They're very directly involved with you as government goes, and that's part of why they slide under the radar. And we just need to pay attention to it and fix that up. The other thing, as was pointed out, I've been seeing those Gondek and McRae signs all over the city. Make sure to call 311. Call them up and complain about these things. Get those things out there. Maybe if they get enough, Nenchi's not running again. Maybe city admin will have lost the fear and actually issue some fines to these guys. Because do you really want to see? This is something I've written on in the past anyways. A couple of things. I'll go on a side rant as I wrap up the show today. I've managed a number of campaigns. I've run in a couple. The election signs are almost kind of one of the most fun parts in a campaign. You're really excited. You get them in there. You get those bundles. You get out. You want to get that name out there. It's really exciting. It's a step up. But they're terribly overrated, especially on public land. The amount that signs actually impact electoral decisions is minuscule. I mean, you don't want to have none, because then people do say, well, is that person in the race or not? And it's just kind of each race is the others to have more and more and more signs on public land. And it just clutters it. And eventually you don't even see those signs on the side of the road, because there's so many of them. They're just a colorful, ugly blur of plastic and wood. The signs that count are on people's lawns. The ones that count are when you go to a door, you knock on their door, you talk with them. So theoretically, you've got their support, and you ask them if you can get the sign on the lawn. And that's a show of support from that person for your candidate, or if you're the candidate for you yourself. That is a sign that'll have some impact. That's a sign that has the neighbors on either side looking and saying, oh, such and such there supports this candidate. Maybe there's something about it. But it's a lot of work. You really got to go pound those doors and get the permission, get those signs out. The ones on public land really have little impact. But personally, I don't think they should be out at all. They're just ugly and they don't have much impact. If you just ban everybody from the public land ones, then everybody's equal on it. But if not, they should just have them during the election period, so you only have to look at the bloody things, for 28 days. But we got Gondek polluting illegally on a bunch of areas all over. As I said, on Blackfoot Trail, you're not even allowed to put signs on Blackfoot Trail during the election, much less often. It's the attitude, and you can tell from campaign management and so on. It's the put it out and we'll apologize later. Well, let's make that apology with a fine, perhaps, because we got a long campaign ahead of us. So let's try to keep it on equal ground. Cheryl's saying, the premier said the masks will be gone once we hit stage 3. That is true provincially, and I'm really looking forward to it. But municipally, it's a separate bylaw. So you see, there could be some battles, and there's been some articles. I believe the Western Standard, I think Dave wrote something on that already, Dave Naylor, on Western Standard Online. There's very possibly going to be some municipal provincial fights as we get citizens standing up saying, hey, the mask law is gone. I want it gone. Nenchi, get rid of that stupid bloody law. Let me go to a business. But a business, again, you can't expect them to sacrifice themselves, because you get your license pulled, you get fined, and right now businesses are hurting badly enough. They're not going to play martyrs for this. We got to stand up and tell goofballs like Nenchi, back off on that stupid control freak law. Rescind it now. It's done. And all those councillors who stood up for it. What else have we got here? So Miranda, you've got a story you're interested in having some coverage on. By all means, send me an email at albertarep@hotmail.com. And let me know what's up with it, and I'll have a look at it. Maybe it's more appropriate for the news area of the Standard or whatnot, but I could certainly check it out, and we look into things and speaking on something of abuse of power, apparently. So that's about it for today, though. We're changing our format, as I said last week on Friday, too. We're going to shorten these shows up a little. I'm going to go to actually probably a recorded format. We'll go with live stuff when there's specials and things going on. But it'll help us be able to get and maintain more guests, actually, if we could schedule a little more and have a little more fluidity with it. And we're always looking for interesting people to speak to, like Marcel and such. And we'll keep these shows going on the same schedule, but eventually they are going to be recorded ones coming up. But of course, by all means, email the comments and send them in, and we'll discuss and debate them. Today was really good. There were some good questions sent out to Marcel, and he was happy to answer them, and I appreciate those. So getting back to remind you of our sponsors, as Jane said, I guess she's ordered that Resistance coffee, so I'm looking forward to it. Again, this is a Western Canadian company. If you're tired of woke political correctness being rammed down your throat, these guys are the cure. They're not going to give your money to woke causes. They're just going to take your money. They're going to send you good coffee. And yes, they're going to give 10% of it to good causes, ones that are standing up for individual rights, not ones that are trying to put you out of work. 10% of everything you spend at Resistance Coffee is going to go for fighting for the constitutional freedoms of Canadians. So go to resistancecoffee.com. And when you order, use promo code Western Standard, all one word, all lowercase, and you'll get 10% off your first order. Western Standard at resistancecoffee.com. I mean, that's win-win-win, right? We're supporting a local business. You're getting good coffee. They're sponsoring us. Everybody does well. Set aside the nabob. Don't worry about some of those woke companies. Resistance Coffee will fix you up. Speaking of others who are standing up for your rights, the CCFR, and that's the Canadian Coalition for Firearms Rights. And don't forget that nobody works harder for firearms owners than these guys. Right now, they're suing the Liberal government, the federal government, on behalf of gun owners. So they are pushing back. They're not just simply taking it. So become a member, go donate their legal fund or get on board, help them out. They need help to help you. Go to firearmrights.ca and click why join. And they'll give you all sorts of information as to why it's important to join and help these guys stand up for you. So thank you all very much. Tomorrow morning, Nathan Gita is going to be on at 10 a.m. And Wednesday we'll be on with the pipeline, and I will be back again on Friday. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy the weather, and we will see you then.